everyone. Welcome to the Monday episode of With Beanz. I'm so excited because today I have a special guest with Beanz. Viva is here. I did an interview with Viva like a month ago. It was so much fun. I got to host his show for about 10 minutes. It was fantastic. So if you're watching on any of the social media platforms, share it out with your friends. Hit the like button. People are trickling in. We have Adam in the chat. Of course he is. He's one of your biggest fans, by the way. I know you can hear me back there. Future Frank is here. Truthy's here. Hubby Will is here as well. My husband's watching. And we are live right now on X, on Rumble, on Getter, and I'm also streaming on YouTube, which is like a huge no-no, but I'm doing it anyway. And on the podcasting platforms, we're on SiriusXM, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Apple Podcast, we're on Spotify, we're on, all of them. You can go to linktree.com/withbeanz and leave a review or something and try and be kind and hit the thumbs up button. And without further ado, here he is.
Tracy, I'm making sure that I've sent this everywhere in our locals community, and we're live, and I've sent it out to Twitter and all the other places. Tracy, I'm very much looking forward to this. We started talking too much beforehand, so we started like broaching the subjects of the day, but I'll make the reference now. We have a matching backdrop.
Yes, which is so cool. What are the chances of that?
Apparently, the neon purple is the live streaming podcaster color, but it was my grandmother's favorite color, and my wife ordered this thing. It came out very well.
It's my favorite color. If you could.
I think it's objectively, like, there's some colors that are just objectively perfect, and purple's one of them. Orange is the other, and then some combinations. Orange and black is the coolest combination of colors that exists.
Did you see the thumbnail?
Who's your thumbnail?
Yeah.
But hold on, I want to make sure I'm symmetrical here. I feel like I'm a little bit off. Okay, there we go.
Look at the thumbnail for today's show. It's gonna make you laugh.
You texted me earlier today. Yes, and the infinity bean.
Yes.
Well, hold on, I was show us our DM. Okay.
That's okay. There's not much in there.
No, they were good.
It's the infinity because, my new show it's not the same. The old show was like very like structured, like all about legal and investigative journalism. And this one I'm moving out of that a little bit more towards like health and wellness and all of that stuff that's kind of taken over my life for the past several years. So I'm shifting and moving. But before we get into all the fun stuff, I want to ask you some questions that I've always wanted the answers to. You ready?
I am. I would, one day someone's going to ask a question that I have not yet been asked, and I'm going to have to think about the answer, but let's hear this.
I don't know that that'll happen today, but I'll do my best. Okay. So you're from Canada. Can you explain to us what the hell is going on in Canada?
It's, first of all, it's not, everybody should understand, it's not the first time the Canadians have booed the American national anthem at a hockey game. It's not and it's happened that the Americans have booed the Canadian national anthem in the past. When there's big political flare-ups, the last one I think I can remember, I want to say it was like 2000. It was Iraq war type era, and it happens. There's always tension, but like, even in the heat of war, there are things you don't do, like booing the national anthem of a foreign country. First of all, it could be a hate crime if you boo the wrong country. Like you boo the wrong ethnic identity's national anthem, it'll land you in jail. It's like burning a Black Lives Matter flag. I mean, that'll get you put in jail. Like Enrique Tarrio got put in jail for 10 months. But you burn the American flag, it's an act of revolution. No, what's going on is I'm Canadian. It makes my opinion no better or no worse than anyone else's. All it says, I might make enemies with some Canadians. Canadian politicians, the Canadian population at large, I think tend to think of themselves as political, economic, military equals to America. And when you think that you're equal to someone in a negotiation, you might not overplay your hand, but overassess your hand. And but the bottom line, I don't think the Canadian government and the Canadian people, symbiotic relationship, yes. Big trading partners, yes. Biggest contiguous land border, yes. It doesn't mean that we are equal players in this bargaining, and I don't think Canada really appreciates that. And so when they get, told certain things by Big Brother, they don't like it. And the way they manifest that frustration is by booing the national anthem and then getting their asses kicked at a hockey game. It's stupid. It's stupid. It's petulant. It's childish. And what really pisses me off is it sort of feels like people have been manipulated by the Justin Trudeau faux jingoistic. Like now all of a sudden he's proud to be Canadian.
Yeah.
This jackass 20 years ago or 10 years ago says there's no such thing as a Canadian identity. But he's playing into that so that he can get a bunch of Canadians to react emotionally and become his useful idiots. And that's what we witnessed the other night.
So on that tangent, like, I don't even think I understand it fully. How does the Canadian system of government work from a 30,000-foot view?
At the risk of not making a mistake on this, we have a parliamentary system. So we have a parliamentary system. We have a prime minister that is not selected like a president is, but rather ridings vote on their political parties. First past the post is what it's called. And so there are 338 ridings in Canada. In those ridings, you have your federal elections. You vote for the party you like. Whichever party wins that riding, they get that riding. And then whichever party wins, the most, not an objective majority, but it'll be a minority government if they get the most votes, but it's split so that nobody has a full majority. Then that party appoints their leader as the prime minister. That's how it works basically with Justin Trudeau. He's not directly elected, you elect the party.
Oh.
Which is why now, when he says, I'm going to resign and we're going to have a leadership race within the Liberal Party, you're going to have another prime minister of Canada that's not Justin Trudeau, assuming he goes through on his word, that doesn't result from a federal election. So it looks like it might be Mark Carney, a WEF stooge, or Chrystia Freeland, the WEF stooge. But it's a parliamentary system, not a presidential system. We have provinces the way America has states. We have premiers the way the states have governors.
Okay.
And there's something, there's supposed to be a federation, the federal government, and then provincial autonomy. There's a lot less provincial autonomy in Canada than there is state autonomy in America. And so
is there like a document that outlines how that's supposed to work that nobody's listening to?
Or... No, it's working the way it's supposed to work. You got your Constitution of 1867, which was amended in 1982. But no, we have a constitution, and it gives provinces certain provincial rights, which is why provinces determine their own. No, they don't determine their own healthcare, but they run their own healthcare systems. But they get money from the federal governments. You pay provincial tax and government or federal tax. So you have like your harmonized sales tax or your provincial and federal. But by and large, look, it's a similar system, but it's parliamentary, and so we are subjects to the king or the queen, the queen or the king now, and not presidential. There's very little respect for provincial autonomy, and that about sums it up.
Okay, so then with that out there, how does Canadian law, because you're a lawyer, right? I mean, how does it differ from American law?
So, okay, now I was a Quebec civil lawyer, and now Quebec is the distinct province within Canada. They call it, they call it a distinct province because it's a French province. We have the Civil Code, which is the descendant of the Napoleonic Code. So we have a similar system, which is called civil law, codified law, to Louisiana, and I want to say California might be the other. There's 2 states in the States that have a civil law system. The rest of Canada is common law. So I only got my civil law degree. I got, I could practice in federal law, so I could do things of federal jurisdiction like criminal law, if I so chose, bankruptcy, which I did dabble in. And that's pretty much it. But I wasn't certified in common law, so I practiced in Quebec. I have since relinquished my law license because I don't practice law in Quebec anymore. The only thing that license was serving for were people making anonymous complaints to the Bar Society of Quebec because they don't like my tweets shitting on Justin Trudeau. And but I practiced civil law in Quebec for 13 years, commercial litigation, landlord-tenant disputes, copyright, IP stuff, bankruptcy, and I did not love any day of it more than the day before. But I didn't, common law is jurisprudentially based. You get your big cases from which other cases follow. In Quebec, we have a big fat civil code. It's got like, let's say 3,500 articles, and it's codified law. So everything in the law has a provision in the civil code, section whatever for contract law, section whatever for, all the other stuff. But that's how it works in Quebec.
It's much different.
Yeah, I mean, they call it, it's codified. There's statutes in every other province, but basically, like all of the principles of law, they wanted to condense into a book. They call it the Civil Code of Quebec. Whereas the common law principle is you have your big cases from which other courts will follow.
So is it pretty cut and dry then, and straightforward to try a case in Quebec?
No, because it's always interpretations, and then you get conflicting interpretations of certain provisions of law. Some stuff is settled, like contract law is settled. What they call, statute of limitations, prescription, settled stuff. But bottom line, it's always a question of adopting or interpreting the facts in light of the law. Some provisions are more cut and dry than others, and then others, causality is always going to be an interesting one. When you have liability, causality, damages, and then it's always a question of interpreting the facts. But bottom line, typically there's a provision of law that applies to the situation. So if someone owes you money, if someone defamed you, if someone killed a deer, or sorry, if someone shot a deer that died on someone else's property, there's a provision for that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big ass code.
It's almost like how they have dumb laws on the books here, like you can't drive with a pig in your back seat for more than 20 minutes. Like they do. They have that stupid. You're breaking a law no matter what time of day it is in the United States. I'm sure Barnes has said this to you before.
Oh, you don't know. He said you follow your typical person around. I don't know how many felonies he said they commit in a day, but no, there's no question. It's like, first of all, we have a bunch of ridiculous laws. You've got your civil code, but then you've got statutes for every municipal bylaws, and then you got your criminal code. So like in Canada, the criminal code is still applies in Canada. So you still got your federal criminal code that applies in the province of Canada, Quebec. But no, we're living in a world where it's Marco, who was it? Tilius, who said more laws, less justice. But we're living in a world where literally you can find a person, you can find a crime, because we all, at any given point in time, break the law inadvertently. Tracy, I was biking out in the back of the glades, and I see a turtle shell.
Uh-oh.
It's like, okay, I pick up the turtle shell. Well, I'll show you. I double checked, but I pick up a turtle shell. I bring it back home, and like, look how cool this thing is. And then it's like, are you allowed to take that? Like, why wouldn't I be allowed to pick up a shell that like? But then I look it up. It's like, yeah, no, there's certain shells which you cannot possess, because they want to make sure that people aren't poaching, and you don't get to say, oh, I found it, and that's why I have it. So there's some shells like leatherback turtles that you cannot possess.
Damn,
so
environmentalists, man.
No, but so you live in a world where you might not even know that you're breaking the law. You might not even know that there was a law to be broken.
And that's not a defense.
No, that's right. In French, we say nul n'est censé ignorer la loi. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. And so it's amazing. You don't know any better. You put a video on the internet, and then someone literally calls the feds on you. You remember the video of the woman who she threw a box tortoise back into the water, and it was like, that's a tortoise, you idiot. It's going to drown. And meanwhile, disturbing box tortoises is itself potentially felonious.
I still, in Canada, like here we have idiot legislators that pass these laws, right? Does the same thing happen in Canada? Like you have idiot, people?
I'm from, I will always be from Quebec. We have language laws. Like, Tracy, we have legislators sit down and say that when they say that, the French has to be nettement prédominant. So I'm from Quebec, where French is the official language. And so on signage, they passed a law that says the French version has to be clearly predominant from any other language version. And so talk about how insane it is and why people don't do business in Quebec in particular. You had the so-called, but in fact, language police raiding like kosher bakeries because the kosher food didn't have English and French, or it didn't have French that was predominant. They would go to like Chinatown, where you have ethnic communities serving ethnic communities saying, no, this doesn't have the requisite French on it. There was another case of Tim Hortons. You ever wonder why? You ever seen Tim Hortons coffee?
Yeah.
Okay. You ever wonder why it doesn't have an apostrophe?
Because of that?
Yes.
So wait a second. So basically an open borders globalist country at this point is now going around to the people they've welcomed in who haven't assimilated to the culture, arresting them for not having the proper signage outside.
Well, they don't arrest them. They just, fine them and put them out of business. This is only in Quebec. But in Quebec also, it also explains some of the immigration policy, which is to favor French-speaking countries because because you want to preserve the language, but in so favoring French speaking immigrants, you are tapping into a demographic that's not French from France. So I mean, it explains a little bit of what's going on culturally, linguistically in Canada. But no, the Tim Hortons, they wanted to have branding that was uniform across the country, so they took out the apostrophe. There was a garage, and I think it was called Sam's Garage, and they said you can't have the apostrophe because that's English. But if it's just Sam's, it could be not ubiquitous, but unilinguist. And so the guy put a Canadian flag over the apostrophe, which only pissed off the OLF, the Office de la Langue Française, even more. But no, this is what goes on in Canada. It's and by the way, 40 years of this legislation to protect the French language, and it's only gotten further assimilated into the broader Western culture, and so they think we need tougher laws, and they've been cranking down on more language laws out of the province of Quebec.
You see, there's so many questions I have that we would be talking Canada for an hour, because I know little about Canada, honestly, other than they're up there and, they tend to be pretty friendly people. And then COVID happened, and I've never had an issue with the Canadian. I mean, personally, I never have. I've met plenty of them. And then the truckers happened, and I was like, wow, these people are really passionate and have freedom in their bones. Like, look at these amazing people, what they're doing. And then I saw when your former government started seizing everybody's bank account that could have possibly donated to help. And I'm like, whoa, okay, outside of the vaccine mandates that they're doing, this is insane. And now we've got a trade war. So, and you're here in sunny Florida.
What's amazing is people tend to think that Canadians are polite. And the interesting thing is I've now come to sort of understand this or appreciate this, certainly in light of COVID. Deferential to authority is what I would call Canadians. And I think it's in the DNA of the country, where you're a parliamentary system, you're subjects to a king or a queen, as opposed to free, God-given individuals like you are in the States. And so deference to authority can very quickly turn into severe impoliteness, like when your neighbors are calling Westmount security because your kids are not social distancing in the park, or you're having, 1940 type play dates that you have to check for the cops when you're running out of your friend's place. So I would say it's a superficial, but first of all, people are nice and beautiful across the world. Yeah. And so you're saying Canadians are polite, sort of like flip side is like, oh, so then Americans are not polite. No, people are generally speaking good, beautiful, loving, nice people, whether it's Canada, America, South America, Ethiopia, Europe. The whole Canadians are polite, it's a stupid trope. But they are certainly deferential to authority, and that lends itself to going exactly where it went for the last 5 years. And what we're seeing right now is scratch the surface of deferential to authority, and then it's how dare you question and how dare you defy the authority, you far extremist on the internet who's complaining about COVID lockdowns and mandates.
So now, how are you gonna how is Canada dealing with this culture shift? There's a lot of people who are not happy, and who from the social media reels I see, and that's the extent of my knowledge base on it. People are really struggling, not happy. I've seen a lot of pro-America, yes, please take us as the 51st state people. I've seen a lot of anti-America sentiment as well, but still, they're not happy. So what happens in Canada? There's a huge shift.
Well, it's an interesting thing. I think the proportion of people who are pro 51st state discussion, and that's not to say anybody, I'm not pro 51st state because I think it's an unserious proposition. Canada is bigger than America landmass wise. I think Canada's bigger. It's as diverse as you can possibly imagine. You've got maritime provinces which have a culture that is so distinct from the rest of Canada. I went to Newfoundland once on a road trip. I couldn't understand what they were saying to me.
Wow.
But beautiful people. But
you go to New Orleans and feel that way, truthfully.
No, absolutely. I was at a Tim Hortons. This was 20 years ago, and I had to go to the booth because I couldn't understand a word the person was saying. But the idea of a 51st state, Canada is so diverse. You'd have to have 10 different states, which represent the provinces, give or take. But I'd say the silo on Twitter or X is certainly more amenable to the discussion of a 51st state, which is let's work with America because we like American freedom and we like American the spirit for life. I think, unfortunately, the vast majority of Canada is fundamentally un-American or defines themselves by not being American, and they're the ones who didn't support the trucker protest, were not unhappy when it was violently suppressed, still think of it as a far-right Russian xenophobic whatever thing. And they're the ones who are most vocal and most populous about this trade war, or tariff war, I should say. The other thing that I think I've now come to appreciate is I go back every winter, and like you go back to a country that is under 6 months of cold, dark, absence of sunlight. Yeah. I genuinely think you get a social culture of sadness or seasonal affected depression disorder, and I think that reflects into what we're seeing right now, which is unhappy people who are unhappy about a situation don't know where to place the blame, and it's a lot easier to focus on the big bad boogeyman of Donald Trump than the actual cause of the misfortune and unhappiness in Canada, which is Justin Trudeau, Jagmeet Singh, and to a lesser degree the Conservative Party, which has done nothing to counteract those two forces.
Not to belabor the Canada discussion too much longer, but can you tell me Poilievre, is that how you say his name?
Poilievre.
I can't do that.
No, it's Poilievre, and it's yeah. But the funny thing is his French is surprisingly rusty. I thought he was like a born French. I guess he's born Anglo, but he's got a French last name. But yeah, sorry. What's the question?
Are you a fan or not a fan of his? Because everything I've seen clips of him saying sounds amazing to me. Like, do you like him? Do you not like him? Is he a wolf in sheep's clothing?
I ran for the People's Party of Canada, which is Maxime Bernier's party. And you might have seen Maxime Bernier was just on with Jimmy Dore last week or the week before. So he is not an enemy in as much as he's not an enemy. And I'll leave it at that. He's a fair weather politician. I'm skeptical of him. He's not doing what I think he needs to be doing. And he definitely blew his response to this tariff trade. But he's not an enemy in the same way Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh are enemies. I do not think the Conservative Party espouse even conservative values, let alone constitutional values. I don't trust Pierre Poilievre to do the right thing out of principle. I trust that he might be compelled to do it out of public sentiment. And in that sense, he's a useful politician. I'll give everyone a hard time when they deserve it. But I am a PPC, former PPC candidate. Maxime Bernier, if you've never met him, you should look into him. He's great. Do I like Pierre Poilievre? The Conservative Party is not doing what they should. They are basically liberals driving the speed limit, to use the cliche.
They're rhinos.
Yeah, well, even worse. I mean, the Conservatives in Canada are almost like as liberal as the Democrats in the States. They vote for censorship, or they don't vehemently oppose censorship laws. They talk about gun rights, but very, very half-assed, lackluster. They vote for insane legislation, the conversion therapy ban. Conservatives voted unanimously for that. So yeah, they're less bad, but they're by no means the Trumpian force for good that we're seeing in the States. It's
been amazing the past couple of weeks.
It's been a rebirth. I mean, since Trump survived the failed assassination, it's been a rebirth, a change of the trajectory of the cosmos.
Yes.
Then the election, amazing, and what the hell he's done in the first month. I mean, it's impossible. We're in the world, Tracy. It's impossible to keep up with it.
I have been an activist since I was 21 years old. I'm 45 now. So I've been involved in politics for my adult life, my entire adult life. I was in the Ron Paul revolution. I was a libertarian. I was I was all about it. I tried to get him elected twice. He didn't. I feel like I'm living back in the Ron Paul revolution, but with a critical mass of people.
Yeah, it is amazing. And, for whatever disagreements you have with Trump or suspicions you might still have, you cannot argue with this is a wrecking ball to the system. And the only time I'll ever agree with Elizabeth Warren, he's taking a wrecking ball to, you're damn right. He's taken a wrecking ball to it. I don't agree with everything, all of the appointments, whatever. But it's such a radical dismantling of this deep, dirty state administrative body that existed that you cannot possibly, at this point in time, second guess how effective Trump is at doing it. It's wild, and it's quite a time to be alive.
It is. I'm so excited. When I come across people shitting on the things he's doing on socials, I'm like, whoa. Are you crazy?
Yeah, deporting rapists, illegal immigrants. I mean, God, who's gonna complain about that? AOC. Well, I mean, the things that he's done within the first week, it's like, okay, like, I don't want Elon Musk having my personal information. First of all, everybody has it. Like, you'd rather Adam Schifferbrains have your personal info,
he does.
Than Elon? Okay, fine. Ideally, he shouldn't have it. You now know what they've been doing with your tax dollars, and you're going to be pissed off about the least consequential fact. Oh, did Elon? He tweeted out. Did Elon used to own PayPal, or was he? Did he have a hand in that?
Yeah, I believe so. Way back when.
The idea, if you're he has your info. He has more info. You might not have even given him your info through Twitter. If you're on it, he knows more about you than you know about yourself.
Yep.
And he's got my social security number. What the hell do you think he's going to do with that? I mean, it's insanity. I think the only people freaking out about that might, say, well, if he's got my social security number, he might be able to see what websites I've been visiting, or I don't know how that works. And so maybe he'll get dirty, humiliating information. But you're not a political target.
No. I mean, I was more worried about the IRS agents having my social security number than I am about Elon Musk having it. Like, it's something to wake up and feel free again and not having to worry. Like, even just as a journalist, I was always worried that I was going to get a knock on the door at any minute, and there was going to, I mean, seriously. Like,
every time I go live, I mean, the joke is, if the doorbell rings, is it the FBI? And I was legit thinking, like, if Kamala Harris had won, how much longer would I have been able to do what I'm doing here? Like, part of the reason for why I even came down in the first place was Canada was passing a bunch of laws that would greatly impede the ability to do this type of content freely, without censorship or without algorithmic demotation, without algorithmic demoting. Had Kamala Harris won, first of all, they could find a way to they'll deport the legals, and they'll find a pretext to do it. The world would be just wildly different. But yeah, it's
thank God we're not there.
The freedom to do what we're doing now, and the sentiment is there. But people freaking out that Elon has your social security number. It's the IRS targeting civilians, which they've done since or forever, but under Obama. Yes. I mean, that's where the reality lies. The rest is a distraction to make people forget about what the government does with your info.
Catherine Engelbrecht that started True the Vote?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so way back before she did this version of True the Vote, she was targeted by the IRS for her not-for-profit looking into, like, years and years and years ago, like a decade or more ago, she testified in front of Congress because the IRS targeted her under Lois Lerner to basically harass her out of business and, like, fine her and all kinds of other stuff, saying she was breaking tax law and this and that. She sued the IRS and won, okay? So this has been a long time coming. I believe in that case, like, Lois Lerner was actually dinged and censured and all kinds of other crap. Because she targeted conservative not-for-profits for their not-for-profit status.
We just picking, like, the easy ones that the IRS goes after. If you can't get someone on a honeypot scheme like Julian Assange, if you can't get someone on actual criminality, hey, taxes are the easiest thing to go after someone for and say, oh, fraudulent misrepresentation, you underpaid your taxes, as if anybody on earth can possibly know how to pay their own taxes without an accountant. And then in certain cases, they disregard professional reliance. You're familiar with Roger Ver? I've been covering this one sort of obsessively since...
I caught your post, but no. So if you can fill us in.
Bitcoin Jesus, he's a guy who was, before he was targeted by the IRS, was targeted by the ATF. He was a libertarian, ran in 99, 2000, at a public debate, referred to the ATF as baby killers because of what they did at Waco. They then go after him for criminality because at the time he was selling literal pest control firecrackers. They were called CP. There was a PC, pest control, whatever. And he was buying them from Cabela's and then selling them on the internet. And then they said, you're selling these things without a permit, even though Cabela's was as well. He went to jail. And he pleaded and went to jail for 10 months for illegally selling explosives, because that's how they define them. Then when he gets out, he's like, I'm leaving the country. They go after him for basically what's known as an exit tax. When you leave the country, you got to declare what your wealth is and then pay an exit tax when you break your citizenship. They said he fraudulently concealed however many Bitcoins he had, and that he owed $48 million when he left Bitcoin. I think it was like the daily trade volume was like $10 million or something. And then they want to lock him up for life. So the IRS went after McAfee. Yep. They go after Roger Ver when they can't find an actual crime. But then you got your Merrick Garland, your former Merrick Garland DOJ, going after people and just finding crimes because nobody is good enough not to break the speed limit at some point in time.
Yeah, and just if you think about that, think of the people they have gone after like that and nothing is stuck on. General Flynn, Donald Trump. I mean, like those cases were ridiculous. Basically laughed out of court when judges were honest. So
it's amazing, and this was part of my massive awakening with Michael Flynn, where everybody says, well, he pleaded guilty. So did Roger Ver to the fireworks. You plead at some point because they were threatening to go after Flynn's kid.
Yep.
And he pleaded in front of a judge who was conflicted and should have never been able to take the plea in the first place. They go after Trump in multiple states, all commie states. Brian Colfage, another one. Do you know Brian Colfage?
Yeah.
Triple amputee, rotting away now because he pleaded in the We Build the Wall charity scandal, one in which nobody who donated complained about. But it's like you do something and they will be able to find a crime within what you've done. So if you do the wrong people, it's terrifying. And so now you have some of the Jan 6ers who are coming out. I was like, dude, you all better be careful because it's not this administration that's going to come after you, but the next one might not like you as much as the current one. So.
That's the whole point. We need to, executive orders are nice and all this stuff is great, but we really need to make some serious codified change to stop this stuff from happening again because we're on the extremes now, right? So the extremes are going on, and if we swing back the other way to the extreme, we won't have it's terrifying.
The pendulum falls over. But I can tell you as a Canadian, and I'm not saying like as a Canadian, my opinion matters more. Codifying does nothing. we have a charter of rights.
That's true.
Codified. Our charter of rights says you have certain guaranteed fundamental rights, except in as much as they can be curtailed in accordance with a free and democratic society. So, bottom line, we have freedom of speech, freedom of mobility, all free, everything except during a pandemic. Then you get shut up in government quarantine facilities. You don't get to consult an attorney, and you don't get to talk freely on the internet. But so codifying it won't solve the problem. I think making examples of the sons of bitches who have been systematically abusing of the system would at least instill the slightest bit of fear of God in others who might think of doing it or be deterred from doing it on a going forward basis.
There has to be some accountability for some of this, for goodness sakes. It's just been blatant lawlessness for years.
Absolutely. Impeachment of judges, but it's got to be, impeachment of federal judges when possible. I don't know how you get state impeachment of judges where you got the Kathy Hochul's of the world who's still pushing the jab, love these corrupt judges. Civil rights you can go after conspiracy to violate civil rights when Harmeet Dillon gets in. The types of investigations that can be done, and who Fauci got his pardon, Bill Gates didn't, Albert Bourla didn't. Go after some of these medical criminals and prosecute them not out of vengeance but out of justice because we know what they did.
Yep.
And they do need to be held to judicial account.
Well, I have a clip to play for you. I want to get your opinion on. It's a minute and 47 long. And then after I play that...
My attention span is very short.
Do you want me to put it on 2? Because we're going to talk about that too.
Okay, go for it.
Here we go.
That's clear. Is it a crime to insult somebody in public?
Yes, it is.
And it's a crime to insult them online as well?
Yes.
The fine could be even higher if you insult someone in the internet.
Why?
Because in internet, it stays there. If we are talking here face to face, you insult me, I insult you, okay, finish. But if you in the internet, if I insult you or a politician...
That sticks around forever.
Yeah.
If somebody posts something that's not true, and then somebody else reposts it or likes it, are they committing a crime?
Yeah, in the case of reposting, it is a crime as well, because the reader can't distinguish whether you just invented this or just reposted it. That's the same for us.
The punishment for breaking hate speech laws can include jail time for repeat offenders. But in most cases, a judge levies a stiff fine and sometimes keeps their devices.
How do people react when you take their phones from them?
They are shocked.
It's 6:01 on a Tuesday morning, and
Germany,
we were with
right?
state police as they raided this apartment in northwest Germany.
Open up, Gestapo.
Inside, 6 armed officers searched a suspect's home, then seized his laptop and cell phone. Prosecutors say those electronics may have been used to commit a crime. The crime, posting a racist cartoon online.
racist is already a conclusion. I'd like to see the cartoon to determine if it is in fact racist.
Well,
even assuming.
Who's determining what the freaking truth is?
If I were to say those stupid krauts can go straight to hell, would that get me in trouble in Germany?
Yes.
This is like I make jokes. I'm not going to. I lived in Paris for a year. I'm not going back to France anytime soon. I'm not going to England anytime soon at all. And I sure as hell I'm not going back to Germany. There's a joke in there, but not going back to Germany. Not for those reasons. It's insanity.
How and they sit there laughing.
No, oh yeah, you go to jail for that. Oh yeah, right to jail. I mean, I would like to know what's racist. You know, when you go to the ADL's website, it seems everything's racist. It seems facts are racist. And statistically inconvenient facts. I'm actually even struggling to appreciate what does racism even mean anymore. It's another term that's been diluted to nothing.
I don't even think they know what racism means anymore. And this is what 60 Minutes is parading out today as though like they're the champions of virtue after they're mocking J.D. Vance and his speech and all of this. But this is exactly what he was talking about. Then they do this segment of like laughing and giggling while people are getting their private property stolen by the government for wrongthink and wrong speak. Like, what if the person who shared, like, what if I shared one of your tweets and it was wrong, but I thought it was right? And it was wrong as per who is the other question, but whatever.
This was the law in Canada, which was they wanted to amend the criminal code. Oh God, I'm mixing up all of these amendments, but it was the one Jordan Peterson was coming out strong about, which is if you don't delete a hateful or racist post and someone else retweets it going forward, when you had access to delete it, even if it predated this amendment to the law, which was going to like add potential life sentences for denying genocide on the internet, you could be held legally accountable. It's insanity, but it's quite clearly politically motivated at the end of the day. They cloak it in benevolence, like, oh, we got to protect, racism. We don't want people highlighting the fact that it wasn't a car that rammed into a crowd. It was a Saudi national who drove the car into a crowd. So that's racist. That's Islamophobic. Bring out the fact that the kid who stabbed the little girls in England, that he was a recent Muslim convert, or that he was, I think he was from Ethiopia. Was it Ethiopia? I forget which exactly, but that'll be racist. And then if you accurately report on reality and people in the comment section take a racial angle or a hateful angle, well, then you gotta take it all down, because even though it's true, it's leading people to say mean things, and we can't have that. And we can't certainly have the people know about the murderous, devastatingly, deathly consequences of our failed immigration policy. So shut it down under the pretext of benevolent, combating racism.
It's unbelievable. Like, I mean, people are actually in favor of that, though. That's the scary thing. They've given away all of their power to some other entity, so they don't have personal agency over anything anymore. It's just all automaton.
Well, it is. I don't want to be too broad and sweeping in my category, in my qualification. They're stupid. They're ignorant, naive. They think the government is still good. They haven't learned anything from the last 5 years, let alone from the last 50 years. And the flip side of it is some people would rather make a mistake but have someone else to blame for it than make their own decisions and only have accountability to take for it.
You are so good. That was such a great segue into Lindy Lee. It's Lindy
well,
Lee.
I was gonna talk a little bit more about the COVID jab, but yeah, Lindy, this is an interesting thing. So you'll ask your questions. We have another interview going forward.
Yeah.
Because I do want the dirt on what Lindy knew about the mental decline and the corruption within the DNC. But yes, what are your questions, Tracy?
Okay, so here's the thing. Like, just to break it out for people, I played the clip of her on Sean Ryan talking about, what happened after the debate and how Hunter Biden was running the White House and all of that. And like, I saw her a little while before that doing her thing. And like, nobody trusts anything, right? But sometimes people trust things too quickly just because it seems to align with what they want. Lindy Lee has come out and say, well, I am now working for the Republicans. She was a big-time Democrat bundler, for lack of a better word. I'm working for the Republicans now, and I'm going to raise money to make sure they stay in power. I completely, distance myself from the left. They're terrible, horrible people. I was so misled, but I wasn't misled. Like, you came out, and so you were like, I don't believe any of this. Like, it's really hard for me to believe when in November, she was saying terrible things about conservatives, Donald Trump, all of this stuff. Now, all of a sudden, she's had this come to light. So you, I guess, asked her for an interview, and she said yes. Is that how it worked out?
Yeah, well, I was giving her a very hard time on Twitter. I think I can recognize that sometimes I'm a bit of an asshole, but being an asshole, but a fair asshole is I mean, that's a question of perspective. Some people don't like having their wrongs rubbed in their face, and I'm not perfect, and there's no but. I rub my wrongs in my face, and I do have to account for the things that I've done that were wrong, that were unfair, or that were misunderstood, and some of them I'm still apologizing for. With the clip of Barry Weiss, where I recycled the clip from 8 years ago and illustrating how leftist minds think. And then people were thinking, well, it's a contemporary clip. And then it's like, it was a I still feel bad because sometimes you do things that get misunderstood, or you do things too quickly and you don't really think about how they will get understood. But no, my issue with Lindy was seeing what was going on. She goes on the Sean Ryan podcast and then is complaining that people are saying bad things about her, calling her a CCP spy, which I think is a stupid accusation, because you have better critique against her if you want to go that way than CCP spy, which is unsubstantiated and unsubstantiatable. Mm-hmm. But I was like, and before interview, I was tweeting. I was like, you got some nerve complaining about defamation when, given the things that you said as recently as whatever. And so I said, like, you have to account for these things. You don't have to grovel and beg for forgiveness for 5 years, but you have to address them. Like when you're calling, she. Whether or not you think it's brainwashing and just repeating all of the Democrat talking points, I can see how people can believe that. You get the tweet and it says, would you mind putting this out? Make it your own, as she said during our interview, but get this message out. Trump is a rapist. Trump is a traitor. Jan 6s were terrorists. Okay, fine. If you made a mistake and it's sincere, you do have to answer for that. You can't just
you can't come in as a superstar to the quote conservative / MAGA movement, right? And then pretend like all of that stuff. Oh, whoops. She contradicted.
Well, that's what what also concerned me is, like, I appreciate people can regret their behavior so much so they want to literally delete it. Like, I'm ashamed of this tweet, delete it. Well, people have engaged with that. And if people want to understand your personal grievance, if you delete the history, then you sort of delete people's ability to truly appreciate what they're angry about.
And it makes you look worse.
Well, that's like, in a better world, I could delete all my tweets and then move on. But then people are going to say Viva was a real asshole. He was giving her a hard time. And they'll have no idea why I had my grievance with Lindy if they didn't see the tweets that she had made, that I found personally, not personally is irrelevant, but rather morally repugnant.
Yeah.
Like, referring to Ashley Babbitt as a terrorist.
Yeah.
I have no doubt if she's sincere, she regrets it and wants to delete it, but you can't delete it because it denatures the interaction as a result of it. But so if she's had a coming to light moment, and I can appreciate some people will believe her, other people will not. Some people want to believe her because it actually makes you feel better to give people the benefit of the doubt than to treat people like traitors for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
And in fairness to Lindy Lee, what I am told is, her coming around started slowly a little while ago, but it only got cataclysmic after the election. Whether or not it would have gotten cataclysmic had Kamala Harris won, we'll never know.
But a couple things though, which I don't know that you've been able to kind of get because it was your interview, and I don't know if you listen to your own interviews after you do them. I listened to it on 2X, which was crazy.
It's going to be Alvin and the Chipmunks is what that probably sounded like.
I almost want to pull it up and play it for people so that they can hear it, because
you change the tempo as well so that our voices are higher, because then it would be
that would be nice, wouldn't it?
No, I don't typically rewatch myself, and people were saying, Viva, you were a bit of an ass in that interview.
No,
I'm comfortable with the fact that I wasn't, because I have nothing. I want to forgive people as much as everybody else, but I want them to understand why I had taken the position that I took. It wasn't just because she is a recent convert like Tulsi Gabbard. It's because she had a history of years of the most vitriolic things that you don't get to unsay after you wake up.
You're right. And you know what? While I feel like in a lot of ways, she feels genuine to me, okay? In a lot of ways. She had contradicted herself so many times in this interview. You should listen to it again.
No, I know. I don't need to listen to it. I remember everything in terms of, or at least, when I go through it, I appreciate the contradictions, but then also the steel manning explanation for that is, I have no doubt that she feels terrible about it, and in some way you try to rationalize your own mistakes and say, well, it's the best thing I knew at the time, yada yada. So I have no doubt there's probably good faith reasons for which she contradicted herself.
In the span of your interview?
Well, I'm a damn good interrogator, Tracy.
You like, and that's, the thing that bothered me. There was one thing that bothered me about it. One was that you didn't let her talk enough. I would have just let her talk more, because she was saying enough things that didn't make sense for me. And she was, for a 34-year-old, she's very sneaky in the way that she speaks and stuff. And two, she wouldn't let you ask questions without interrupting you. Here, hold on, I have it here. I'm going to put it on.
I'll tell you, I'm often accused of interrupting, and it is potentially, what's the word? I'm told it might be ADHD. It's like when you know where someone's going with the answer and you get impatient. And the flip side is I already listened to a bunch of interviews, and so I knew the story, and I knew what I wanted to get to. But all this to say, by the way, and we'll get into the clip. Nobody, whether or not you choose to forgive Lindy Lee, when someone unequivocally apologizes, there's only so much you can do after that. If you say, I'm never going to forgive you, then don't. Why even hear their apology? She's got a very uphill battle to prove that her conversion is sincere.
The problem is that even if she raises a boatload of money for Republicans and does that, and the problem is that people will scoop her up and give her a show and make her the next quote superstar, without the caution that you're talking about right here, because she's saying things that make them feel, oh, we got another one, yay, woohoo! But we don't.
Yeah, because she was the comparison of her to Tulsi Gabbard, I think, is an inaccurate, unfair. It's an asymmetrical comparison.
She is no Tulsi Gabbard.
Well, in terms of what the worst things that Tulsi Gabbard said, let's give her the absolute benefit of the doubt. She was brainwashed. It is a cult. She's a vulnerable person, or easily susceptible, easily manipulated. Just assume that. Okay, fine. What she said, what she repeated by way of Democrat talking points, it was destiny level vitriol.
Yeah.
And so that, it's a more serious transgression. It takes more time to rebuild. Tulsi never said it. Tulsi has always been an understanding, thoughtful person. Even J.D. Vance, he might have said the one dumb thing about Hitler, 8 years ago. But people make comparisons to Hitler all the time. It's not to wash it off, but we're talking a difference of magnitudes in terms of what was said and the vitriol of what was said. But you have a clip of.
I do. We're gonna listen to.
Am I gonna get embarrassed watching myself? Oh.
I don't know. You're here. It's 2x. We're gonna do it on 2x first, because that's fun.
Now, do you plan on running for office again? You ran for office.
No.
So no one
Oh my
knows
God.
you.
Someone has to hold me at gunpoint with that. No way. No, I just want to be able. Honestly, I even think. Would you guys miss me if I go away for a week? I'm just thinking of sleeping for a while and just disappearing.
Well, you have to appreciate the level of resentment or even vitriol that you're going to get is going to be.
So she's upset that people are coming for her, basically. She's
telling you, I don't think I was unfair at any point in that interview. But I'm the youngest of 5, and my dad's a lawyer. 3 of my siblings are lawyers, so I'm used to.
You weren't unfair. You were direct, honest, and to the point. You questioned her with questions that many of us want the answers to. And she was very much on defense, and she kind of massaged her way into scolding you about some of the questions you asked her. I'm here in good faith. You don't need to say that. She said that at points where you didn't even say anything that would.
But you assume it's I hate to compare to a child. I'm not trying to compare her or adults to children, but there are human tendencies that take root when you're a child, and they're easy to identify. When a kid gets caught doing something, there's a sort of convoluted trying to make sense of it, trying to rationalize it away, even if the explanation doesn't really make sense. It's not much different in adults, and adults, if they want to maintain that childish behavior, they just got to get better at it. I have no doubt that she's had a week of say a week plus more of hell, because some people like me, I knew her from before, because one time when she tweeted out just a slew of garbage, I was like, everything in this is a lie, bang, 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 and then I get blocked. And then I was like, oh, I hold that not against people, but I bring that up. So I have no doubt that she's trying to make sense of it to herself, and in some way trying to explain away what she knows that she did that was wrong. But the bottom line is unequivocal apology it's only a question of now making sure that or following to see if she lives by that apology going forward.
So she said she has what assuming is a man that she loves very much, that she's been with for 8 years, who's a conservative, right?
I don't know how that relationship could have possibly held up.
That's what I'm saying. Like, okay, fine, we'll give that to her. And then she says that she just woke up within the past 5 months or so to what was actually really going on when they lied to her about where all this money went. Possibly, like it's happened to other people before that way, fine. And then she says it's been a slow process that I've been waking up to this stuff. Like she contradicted herself.
Because you know what that, I mean, Tracy, and sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
but
that's all right.
All that says, because what people do is retroactively reassess their own behavior, and then they can find clues that they didn't know at the time, and then sort of literally recreate history or rewrite their own history. So, I remember that happened. I didn't notice it at the time, but now I can pretend that I did. Like, my transition started even earlier. Whether or not it was overnight, like just say it was 5 months that it happened. I can appreciate that too. Like the elderly, if I'm thinking of like, cliches from movies, but somebody who gets duped by a scammer.
Yeah.
And like, he never invited me over to see his family. Oh, and then I only realized it after he's robbed my bank account. And so I can imagine that, like, and some people were sensitizing me to this after the interview. It was like, if she, comes from a wealthy family, never had to work, and if she was hitting up her family for big sums of money, or for, her milieu, and then she finds out afterwards they lied, although I knew that they were lying, but I thought they would win nonetheless, party over country. You could see how that happens quickly. But
and I would have been fine with that excuse, and it would have made sense to me if she didn't contradict herself within 10 minutes of your questioning. And listen, when you tell the truth, it's really freaking easy because it's just the truth, the whole truth. And there are many times where I'm looking at her and hearing her and looking at her body language and saying to myself, like, she seems like she's being very genuine and authentic here, right? But then I think about it and I'm like, all of a sudden she comes out, she's not really telling people anything they didn't already know about the Democrat.
That was my main issue. Is like, and not that she's useless or like. First of all, I'm still in touch with her. I want receipts that nobody has, so that there could be some accountability. But no, when she was on Sean Ryan, like everything she said, we all knew. Whether or not she was late to the game because of indoctrination seems to be the case. But yeah, it was like, all right, so Joe was demented. Everyone lied about it. We knew from 2 years ago. Kamala was a total idiot.
She's scorned personally, right? She's scorned personally. She says that her donors, Viva, she says, and she calls you by your first name the entire time, which I found funny too. But anyway.
She was going with David, not Viva.
Yeah. But, she says that her donors they're just pro-America, they're anti-DEI, they don't want any of that stuff. And I'm like, well, then where the fuck have they been? Why are they donating to the Democrat Party? None of that makes any sense to me.
And this is my main concern. Let's assume that she's sincere and regrets everything, and she's going to have to live this down for the rest, for a long time. Fine. What kind of money what kind of people or donors is she tapping into?
Yep. Because
there's a lot of people who don't like Trump, don't like Vance, and there's a lot of rhinos, and there's a lot of people who wouldn't mind sabotaging what's going on now, because politics is politics, and even when you're on the same side, you try to do that. So
Amen.
That's what I'm saying. Even if she is, I said this, I said it privately to another person. It's nothing controversial to say publicly. Let's just say she is sufficiently easily manipulated that she could be used as a useful tool for the Democrat Party. She raises money. She's in someone can use her to a similar extent on the conservative side and not necessarily for MAGA purposes. So that is where, even if you want to be the most forgiving, thoughtful, caring person on earth, that's where you have to be careful. What kind of money is she bringing in? What kind of people is she bringing in? And
what are the caveats with that money, if any? And do we want to water down what we're doing to the point where we're getting leftist money into our it's very wishy. I don't dislike the woman as a person, as a human being. I have no ill will towards her at all. But I think it's fair for all of us to be like, let's just wait and see, and maybe not elevate this person up to like celebrity status immediately.
Who was the woman that they invited to, I always forget her name, to the RNC, and everyone had a moral problem with it because she's a OnlyFan model? Shaved head. Amber Rose. Is it Amber Rose?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'm glad I got that. It's a similar issue that people had with Amber Rose. The question is, people who have not. It's a very. You can make the argument for both sides. Like someone's going to say, well, Amber Rose didn't contribute to the destruction or the promotion of the Democrat Party, and then other people are going to say, well, by virtue of her lifestyle, she's contributing to the erosion of conservative values.
I think it's different though, because that's coming from a place of judgment from us, right? From whoever's getting involved in it. But this is more a place of guardedness than judgment. I don't think that people are judging her.
Imagine. Okay, because Lindy Lee. First of all, I think she is sincere, and not to be cynical, but it's always easier to be more forgiving or manipulated into forgiving when it's a young woman. And I'm sorry to be politically incorrect, but
in her pajamas.
Well, no, forget that. No, that was. I'm just happy she came on the channel and like, wait, let her sleep. It's like, first of all, she DM'd me like she wanted to speak her truth.
Which,
but like, imagine the Krasensteins. If the Krasensteins turned around overnight, who the hell would believe them?
Well, and not only that, she is very eager to just openly answer questions.
Yeah, which is some people tell me like that's what there's two sides to that. It's either an honest person or the narcissist who thinks that they can manipulate you. Like Alec Baldwin was very eager to give impromptu press conferences.
Yeah.
Lindy Lee, I've had extensive communications with her. I think she's sincere, maybe easily manipulated. And I'm, for my own conscience, I'm just as happy to forgive, but keep track. If the Krasensteins turned around overnight, or Harry Sisson, or that other one there, what's the other rosy cheek kid?
He just pulled around.
Beasley.
Oh yeah.
Is it Beasley? If any of these activists, not just people who had political leanings, overt activists for years, turned around overnight, and the males, the ones you could give a hard time to and not feel like a misogynist big bad man, nobody would believe them for a second. And then, in order to believe them, they would really have to do some, not just atoning, but confidence building. So Lindy's doing the confidence building, but just like if it were the Krasensteins, would you be as giving the benefit of the doubt?
She even hates them.
Everybody hates it. First of all, everybody hates everybody within the Democrat Party. I mean, that much everybody should know, and everybody should understand. First of all, I'm also being mean. The Krasensteins. Maybe there's something in there that is
You don't need to
redeeming.
No.
But what's his face? Beasley. Beasley goes on Tim Pool. That's good. And who's the other one there? Harry Sisson.
That little weasel, man. He lies. He just lies. And he's going to get older and he can't get this back. Like, he's losing his soul. Okay?
It is. I would not, if I grew up in the age of the internet, if I did what I did when I was a kid in the age of the internet, holy hell.
Yeah, but I doubt you were running around like purposefully deceiving people. He knows he's lying.
I wasn't running around purposely deceiving people, but let's say we were very ill-behaved children, and if there were video evidence of the thing, we didn't do anything violent or like demeaning to humans, but stuff that you would never let get to live down, and it would be out there for an eternity. These tweets, in as much as anybody regrets them, they're out there for an eternity. And I forget where I was going with that. It was to say, thank goodness I was not born in the era of social media, because the things we did, we were idiots.
If I was in college and they had like live streams and like whatever, I mean, pledging my sorority and like running around to clubs and stuff, no, that.
But no, so hold on. It was with the Sisson. What was the point with the Sisson?
She was like you were saying, if they turn themselves around, it would take a lot more, or if it would never work if they turn themselves around and tried to be conservative or MAGA or whatever. But she even said that the Sissons and the Krasensteins, like the Krasensteins tried to come to a fundraiser for free using her. And if you look, Ashley St. Clair was standing with Harry Sisson outside of X headquarters. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't think we need to like hate people that don't agree with us. But when somebody is involved in straight up deception, like she said she didn't believe what she was posting.
That was what, this is true. Or she said she believed most of it, which implied that some of it she didn't believe.
How do you do that?
There's an issue, like the forgiveness that comes along towards someone who is merely a passive player or just merely a human is one thing. But when you're an activist, and she was an activist, she was an operative. The turnaround, look, people will be rightly skeptical forever. Some people will think she's a CCP spy. I do not think that she's a CCP spy.
I have a great example for you before we wrap.
We have to wrap.
Nicole Shanahan.
Yeah, okay, exactly.
She started out and I was like, oh my God, what is he doing with her? She's bad news. Look at all this about her past. I have turned into the biggest Nicole Shanahan fangirl out there. That's an example.
That's an example, but even her at her worst, most partisan
Was
clearly sincerely held beliefs, which were probably accurate at the time. The whole thing about some of these tweets is they were lies. They weren't even accurate at the time. So it's not like RFK Jr. sincerely saying, yeah, I support abortion and now I've gotten older and maybe not after this, the first trimester. Nicole Shanahan, probably never as vitriolic, never as I don't want to say dishonest, but probably still more accurate in her political assessments. But then from what she has a special needs kid, right? I think is
vaccine injured.
That's a life altering event, more so than losing the election and now you realize you backed the wrong horse. But
she did both. She did both. Like, that's the thing with her. Like, she did both. She spent a lot of money on Democrat races, and she was involved in tech, and she had, companies that were doing things that, and it was a while ago that I researched her, but I watched her actions. Was she going out on everybody's podcast platforms talking shit about everybody? No. Was she saying, oh, these people, I used to trust them, they screwed me over so bad and blah, blah, blah? Not like this. It was just a different, like, she let people know her heart. And people, yeah.
Not that I'm the measure or metric or anything. Like, I'm just saying, like Viva, you said you voted for Trudeau in 2015. Yeah, I voted for Trudeau out of absolute political ignorance. Even when I was telling people to vote, I wasn't telling them who to vote for. And I wasn't calling Trudeau blackface Hitler in 2015. I'll sure as hell call him blackface Hitler now. And I would never expect them to welcome me in if I came around tomorrow and said, I was wrong, you guys were right all along. I'll never do it because they are literal tyrant bastard pieces of shit. But I would be very understanding if they never accepted me if I were to decide to do that. So it's like it's the
but
issue.
She's saying you will accept me and you're not going to get rid of me, and this is what, like, that's, she literally said, I'm so sorry to tell you.
I think that is positive affirmation to herself. I'm a very forgiving person in general. It doesn't feel good to harbor.
No, it doesn't. It's very kind of you.
When someone apologizes, then you have to operate on that. You have to accept that. Unequivocal, not
that's
this half.
Beautiful.
I strongly condemn bad words on bullshit. I said it. It was wrong. And I feel terrible for it. Like, otherwise, if you can't forgive other people, you can never forgive yourself. And that's an important thing to be able to do in life. Even
you
if
can't heal if you're harboring bad feelings for other people. Like, they go through you. They're not affecting the other person. You're feeling that and it's affecting you. So,
well, I think I'm also harder on myself than I'm much more forgiving on other people than I am on myself. I still, I'm trying to think of the things that I regret that I shouldn't have done. But no, if unequivocal apology, it would be very insincere to ask for it or listen to it without accepting it. It's not.
I mean, even people that are the targets of crimes forgive the people that attacked them.
Yeah, I just read. It was the case of this guy who was just put to death, and his last words were, "I'm so sorry." It's like, how do you apologize for murdering 4 people 20 years ago? And I don't know how you can forgive anybody. Did you watch Breaking Bad? The episode, there was an episode where the science bitch guy. What was his name?
I didn't watch Breaking Bad.
Oh my! Well, have you seen Dexter?
No.
Oh, you're gonna. I think it just broke news, Tracy. It's only the greatest series ever. Dexter, I think, was pretty good up until season 5. But no, there's an episode where he goes to an AA meeting, and one of the guys in the AA meeting, it's all fictional, but probably based on true stories, ran over his kid when he was backing out to go get alcohol in an angry fight, whatever. Like, I don't know how some people forgive themselves for certain things. But if you don't forgive people, especially when they're asking for it, you don't have to trust them with the keys to your car.
Yeah.
But if you don't forgive them when they're asking for it, then that's on you and not on them.
This was a fantastic hour. Could go another hour I mean, you're great. You have called me out before on social media.
What did I call you? I forget. That's where sometimes I feel bad because everything gets read much more harshly on Twitter than if you speak it. Like, I'll tell someone to fuck off in real life, and it's that's it. Everybody knows this. You got a bit of a smiley face. You tell someone to fuck off on the internet.
It hurt
they don't
me.
leave.
I was deeply offended, but no, I'm just kidding.
Which one was it? Do you remember what it was about?
I think it was that I think one time it was something about the girl who the file got leaked of O'Keefe with that girl in the bar.
Oh yeah, that's where okay.
That was one of them.
Hold on, and what did you say? Because I said my position on that was that I didn't think James O'Keefe did anything wrong whatsoever.
Yes, that was your position.
Someone else's, I don't want to mention any names, other people's position was he was plying a vulnerable girl. And I'm like, you like, my goodness.
It just was, like, to me personally, I just thought it was disgusting. Like, there was no need to keep entertaining it. And I don't even remember the details at this point. But you called me out for saying, like, I feel like this is gross. And I very rarely discuss these things on social media. So the times that I do, it blows up. People come at me. So
hold on. That's what I don't like about Twitter. But there's nothing you can do about it. Let me see here. Oh, James, let's see if I can find it. That's what I don't like is like it becomes an onslaught of everyone piles on. But like, first of all, you can't do anything about that. And if you're not prepared to live with that, then you should not be on. Not you as a person, but
no,
someone.
yeah.
Well, you sent your. First of all, sometimes when you do it overtly, it's a
It wasn't fun because and ultimately I feel like if I have a comment section full of people like judging me and chiding me for what I said, perhaps there's something flawed with what I said. Not necessarily that it's their fault because they're terrible people. There's got to be a reason why my words have caused such a reaction. What did I do? That's how I look at it. Like, how can I make this better? How can I change how I communicate with people so that I don't come off X way or Y way so that we can have more of a discussion? That's how I internalize these things, which sometimes makes it worse because then there was another thing too, and it was a year or two ago. I don't even remember. There have been 2 or 3 times where you have taken me, quote tweeted me, and we've had like quote tweet wars going back and forth about like some topic. But we're here together today.
Well, but the thing is this: when you know someone is of good faith, or even if you think they're bad faith, I have very thick skin when it comes to that type of disagreement. If I made a mistake, let's say a matter of fact, I want to know and I want to correct it. If I was just a little bit too mean, my typical response is grow up, sissy. But if I was unfair, that's where if I was unfair with someone, and I'm trying to think of examples where, you don't give a charitable interpretation to what otherwise could have been. Like, I didn't do this one, but this is an example. When remember when they said this racist white guy wouldn't shake Kamala Harris's hand when she was getting sworn in, when she was swearing someone in. It was this old guy. It was just after the election. Kamala Harris is swearing in someone who's newly elected. I forget exactly. And her husband is sitting there and wouldn't shake Kamala Harris's hand, and they call him racist. And I was like, you motherfuckers! Like, the guy's holding a cane. Did you not see that he was holding a cane with them? And so maybe I was unfair to them because they didn't know that, and they would have otherwise corrected if I hadn't come down so hard on them. But if I had done that on their end, I would be mortified. Like, I would feel terrible because to wrongly malign someone publicly. The old expression, to humiliate someone publicly is to murder them. It's a stupid analogy because it's not to murder them, but it's a religious thing.
Well, it murders them if mentally. Yeah,
for sure. And if you do it wrongly, you have some atoning to do. Trying to think of who
I wish I would have known that I could like literally just come to you and say, hey, you might want to think about this a little bit differently, and then we could have had that conversation.
I'm going to go back and see how bad I feel, Tracy, because
I want to know.
Well, another thing, when you have OCD and you obsess over these things, like, I'll do it. But if I don't think I'm going back to see.
You might not feel like you were wrong, like at all. And that's
okay. I try to be fair. No, I do my best, but every now and again I miss not misspeak, but I don't come off. I'm not as forgiving or.
The point is though that truthfully. Obviously, it didn't bother me too much because I came on your show and talked to you for an hour and a half. Obviously, it didn't bother you too much because you're sitting here with me right now. And I think we can reach some sort of central ground with so many people that we're missing out on because of this stupid shit that we let get in the way. That's what my point is.
I sincerely think that anybody who's honest and of good faith will come on for a discussion. Some people are going to say Viva doesn't want to have a discussion with Destiny because it's true. I'm not interested in sleeping with some dogs or laying with some dogs. And I think some people are just fundamentally bad, but maybe I'm being too harsh on destiny. I just,
No.
I draw my line at relishing in innocent people being murdered and you laugh
You
at them.
you don't have an obligation to talk to anybody.
No, but if someone says, Viva, you were unfair, disgusted with me, and then I say no, I prefer just to let the mob handle it on Twitter. That's why when people come on with me, I'm very already prone to giving them the benefit of the doubt. Do you remember Dr. Eugene Gu?
No.
He was the doctor who had an Asian doctor. He did a Black Lives Matter fist pump, and he was sitting there defending the jab. He came on and we had a discussion. Pisco came on, and I liked it, and I'll give the benefit of the doubt to people who are willing to come on. When they don't want to come on, like the Dr. Roger Stones of the world, of these jackasses who are liars and then don't want to come and defend their lies, like Peter Hotez. That's where you know that you're dealing with liars, and you can go ape shit on them on Twitter because they deserve it. Peter Hotez to say I won't dignify a discussion with RFK Jr. Effing pharma whore liars is what they are. But I'd have a discussion with Hotez. Never in a million years would he have a discussion.
No,
like
he's
that.
too good for all of us peons, all of us unvaccinated peons.
Supposed to listen to him. He's the science, and how dare you ask why is the autism rates lower among the Amish community than among the general population? I'm giving Dr. Neil Stone a very hard time these days because they're liars. And when I went,
Viva, you're just peddling in debunked conspiracy theories.
oh yeah, but anyways, all that says, anybody who has the discussion, you got to give them the benefit of the doubt, and anybody who apologizes for your own well-being. If you don't accept apologies, you're probably going to have a harder life than others. But you don't need to accept the apology and then trust them with that for which they apologized and get exploited. But peace and move.
I agree with you. I'm going to keep my eye out on all this, and I'm sure
I'm going back to look at our Twitter history. I'm darn curious as to what it was. There was one person, I won't mention names, who was exceedingly unfair on James O'Keefe to the point where it felt like some sort of Operation Hit piece.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And there's been a couple of them. There's that one as it relates to that video. Then there's the other guy there who I'll call out. Who was the one that basically threw James under the bus in the company Project Veritas? He shits on me also on Twitter.
I don't know the name of the guy you're talking about. I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember his name.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyhow, it's
You're a shit stirrer. It's okay. You can be a shit stirrer. I like shit stirrers. I think Barnes hates me because I was big on the health freedom accountability tip for a while, and was like the only person I see who can do that for us is DeSantis, because Trump wasn't even recognizing the vaccine as anything bad at all. He was out there talking about how great it was. So I think Barnes was like, oh, she likes DeSantis, I hate her now. And so he doesn't.
Barnes isn't even like that. And I don't even think, Barnes, I don't even think hates Nick Fuentes.
Really? Well, that's not a high bar for me to hit.
No, but I'm just saying, he had a debate with him and then he blocked him. Barnes is also like, a Southern guy who doesn't want to harbor hatred. But he doesn't respect what Nick Fuentes has to say politically. I don't even think he doesn't even hate Candace Owens, but he certainly has his opinions about her.
I mean, he unfollowed me, and we'd been corresponding for years, and all of a sudden I'm persona non grata and whatever. I love the both of you. I think you're both bringing something so important to the conversation, and I love what you do, and I love how often you do it, and how.
Well, I'm going to thank you very much, and I'm going to continue causing shit on Twitter, but only for truth and accuracy. And if I make a mistake, like when people said, Viva, you were very mean and aggressive with Lindy Lee, and I was like, okay, maybe was I? And I have to reassess. If I make a mistake, I'm going to correct, but I'm going to give the people who I believe are liars a very, very hard time. Although disagreement, Tracy, I have to go back and see what
you're going to have to now, because it was.
And I'll tell you, if I feel bad about it, I'm going to pick that scab and open that wound again and say and apologize if I think an apology is warranted.
It is not necessary, but I would lovingly accept your apology. You might be like, "Oh, I should have gone harder." Who knows?
Well, now I'm very, very curious.
Thank you so much for being here. Tell people who are living under a rock and don't know you guys where you could find you and where you could find your show.
I gotta go this way. Viva Frei. And every Sunday night we got Viva and Barnes. We do our Sunday. We talk about everything law related and cultural. We've got one of the most amazing communities out there on Locals. VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com. If you Google my name, you'll find some very, very funny things on the internet. Viva Frei or David Freiheit. And that's it.
Awesome. Well, it has been a pleasure. I at the end of the show now play my intro as an outro, and then I end it for the day. So
Yeah, and then I'll stay here and we'll talk afterwards. I'm gonna go do a search on Twitter right now.
do that right now. And for all of you guys out there, leave a review on the podcast platforms. It really helps a lot. We will see you next week because, as I said, I don't think I actually told you, shows for the rest of the week are off. I'm headed to CPAC. Charge ahead. See you next week, guys.